Black Letter Press are printing a new edition of all 5 of the books of the Lemegeton, the Lesser Key of Solomon, and this is the first book in that series, Ars Goetia. So Ars Goetia is the first book in that in the Lemegeton, in the compilation of grimoires, which is the Lesser Key of Solomon, also known as Lemegeton. And so it makes sense that this would be the first in that series that Black Letter Press would publish. And it's a lovely, lovely new edition. It's been published many, many times in the past, of course. And, I have a couple of copies from various editors, from various translators and so on, including Joseph Peterson's edition and so on. And there's, of course, the wonderful Goetia of Dr. Rudd by Dr. Stephen Skinner. But there's something quite special about this particular edition in terms of how beautiful it is. I've just been showing you the lovely cover, which really is very beautiful. I mean, it's undeniable how beautiful it is. And I'll show you a little bit more of that as we go ahead. And just wanted to show you in comparison to the traditional size of Black Letter Press books, which are usually a little bit smaller than this one, right? So this one's just maybe a centimeter more in size, in height and in width. So what is this? It's a very, very notorious book, right? A very notorious grimoire, since the Lemegeton contains grimoires dealing with demonic spirits, or so-called demonic spirits, and angelic spirits, and also spirits in between. And, this particular one deals with demonic spirits. And so, I will be showing you a few of the sigils of the demons as I flip through these pages, just as a little warning. Some people might not want to see those, right? Fair enough. So, the main thing that I want to talk about, of course, is it's something that I've spoken about regularly on my channel, is the fact that the word Goetia, because of how popular this book is, right? How popular this particular grimoire is, has been associated with demons, and of course, Goetia simply means the art of the goes, right? The practice of the goes being the ancient Greek sorcerers, right? So no, there's no such thing as a goetic spirit. The goes would conjure mostly dead humans. That was what they mostly conjured, and they would, of course, conjure Greek gods. But no, these are fallen angels, according to legend, that would be associated much more closely with Judaism and Christianity later on. Of course, these would have been the spirits that Solomon conjured to help him build the temple in Jerusalem. Help him to, in fact, build the temple in Jerusalem, right? And then the legend would have it that he then sealed those demons into a brass vessel, and the details of that is all described at the end of the book. Let me see if I can find the specific passage. There we go. The brass vessel is described right there. And then that brass vessel was later broken, and the demons were scattered. And just Belial actually stuck around and inhabited a picture from which he spoke to various people. Well, there we go. What's particularly interesting for me in this specific edition is how many manuscripts have been brought together. So Paul Summers Young introduces the book, giving his thoughts on on the whole process. His thoughts meander. I particularly appreciated this that starts on page 32, in which he gives just a straight up description of his process of bringing these different manuscripts together, which manuscripts he's chosen and what's special about them. And so for each of the 72, and in fact more than 72 spirits that have been included here, why more than 72? Well, I'll tell you that in a moment. But for each of the 72 spirits, you have sigils from different sources. Right, so depending on which source has actually mentioned this spirit, you'll get sources or sigils from Dr. Rudd, right? And we know that Dr. Rudd included sigils from associated angels of the Shem HaMepharash, along with psalms associated with that angel, right, to keep that demon in check. We get a sigil from Harry's, from Dawson Lee, from the Mathers Crowley edition. But some of them don't have some of those, and some of them have only others. And it's all a little bit strange. In fact, some of these have 52 demons listed, and some of these have 72 demons listed, and some of them don't overlap. So in the end, we in fact have more demons than 72, more spirits, should I say, than 72, because of course I started off by saying that these were fallen angels, but that's a very Judeo-Christian, because it's both Jewish and Christian narrative. But of course, we know from modern research that many of these spirits were in fact ancient gods, and but not necessarily all of them, you know. And so they've got various origins, and work with them has been a central part of magic for a long time. I'll go with that. I really appreciated at the end also the various methods of working which are listed, and each listing has got slightly different instructions, got slightly different recommendations, got slightly different prayers, slightly different conjuration wordings and things like this. So really, really nice for cross-referencing and for working out what's ideal for you. And then, of course, at the very, very end, which was kind of interesting, Paul Summers Young says that he's found one of the missing spirits, Pruflas, also Busas, right? So there we go. So there's a little Easter egg for us there. What else can I tell you? I mean, there's very little that I can tell you about the Ars Goetia that you're not going to be able to find much more details about just by looking up the Ars Goetia entry on Wikipedia. But what I'm especially here for, folks, is to give you an idea of what this specific edition brings to the table. And you can see you've got a Smithsonian book. It's very, very handy. It's just I'm going to say it's good for it's a good traveling size, right? Each entry has got, I'll show you, there we go. Well, actually, here we are. Let's have a look at Murmur. Here we go. We've got details about Murmur found in Scott's Discovery of Witchcraft, right? Then we've got the Dr. Rudd description, then from Harry's, right? So you're going to find that most of these are saying more or less the same thing. But what's interesting is when they don't say the same thing, right? And then we got Dawson Lee, and then we've got the Mathers Crowley. That's kind of typical for an entry that appears in all of those sources. Some of them only have 2 or 3 sources, and some of them only have 1 or 2. So yeah, there we are. Then let's talk a little bit about the paper. You know, the paper, which is just the classic black letter press, lovely cream paper. You know, this really is doing justice to the material. You know, there's no print on demand rubbish, paperback, flimsy nastiness, which fair enough, you know, is great for throwing into a rucksack. But this is your collector's edition. You know, this is your special edition that you keep in a special place, right? I gave away, in fact, one of my Lemegatons quite recently in view of this new collection by Black Letter Press. As I was saying, each of the 5 books from the Lemegaton are going to get their own individual volume. And so yeah, as I was saying, I gave away one of my other copies, my less pretty copies, right? And I might mention this. I said to the person that I gave it to, who wasn't very familiar with the Ars Goetia, or at least with the Lemegaton, I said to them, if at all possible, it's possibly best not to keep this book in your bedroom. And I think that if you know what you're doing, then you don't need my advice. And if you don't know what you're doing, I would say that that would be a good rule of thumb. Just don't keep it in your bedroom while you don't know what you're doing, you know? Is this a dangerous book to possess, to own? No, it's not a dangerous book to own. Don't go, you know, speaking the names of the entities out loud, although I will say that calling these entities is not a trivial matter, so you'd be hard pressed to call them by mistake, kind of thing, right? Nevertheless, these entities are associated with a particular energy. Each one its own energy, by the way. Some have got some kind of, you know, like a rotten energy, and some have got a very pleasant energy. They've each got their own kind of energy, and you know, speaking their names out loud does engage you in at least on a level with the energy of that entity, and you might want to be a little bit careful, you know. And this is the reason why I'd say keep it away from the places where you sleep, the places where you let your guard down the most completely. You know, when you're sleeping, you're not you know, you're not present to fend for yourself, right, to fight things off. And so yeah, I wouldn't keep it in your bedroom, once again, unless you know exactly what you're doing. And I'll leave it up to you, of course, to decide whether you know what you're doing or not. People's egos, I know, get in the way, and yeah, maybe sometimes it's not a bad thing to get your fingers burnt. There we go. That's Ars Goetia, the Black Letter Press edition, edited by Paul Summers Young. Thank you so much to Paul Summers Young and to Black Letter Press for bringing us this lovely new edition. There we go. I hope the review was useful. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up. I'll put links down below in the description. And yeah, subscribe if you would like to get more of these reviews. And if you'd like to support the channel, of course, there are links to the Patreon down in the description and in the pinned comment as well. Thank you again for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye-bye.